What's going on, guys? ESG here with a new FPL video. In today's video I'm going to be going through a really balanced Salah and Haaland draft and a way that you can fit them both into your team as well as having some other key assets in there. As always, if you do enjoy the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And with that being said, let's get into the draft. So to start off, we've got the goalkeeper, the defence, and the bench. So if we look at the bench in order, we've got Turner in net. He's just there as a 4 million goalkeeper. You need a 4 million goalkeeper in here just as a bench filler, so I went for Turner. He might get a little bit of game time for Forest, but it's probably not guaranteed. But I don't think any 4 million goalkeeper is guaranteed game time, so I was gone for Turner because I don't have any other Forest players, and it frees up players from other clubs if I do want to go for them later on. We then have Rodgers from Aston Villa. In pre-season so far, he's played 2 games and got 3 goals and an assist, and he's looking really sharp. I do think that with Diaby now leaving Aston Villa, Rodgers is going to get a lot more game time. Even if he's not a frequent starter, he'll definitely be coming off the bench in around the 60th or the 65th minute, and I think he could have an impact off the bench, so definitely one to keep an eye on with regards to his minutes. But I think it's good having Rodgers there in case you do need to start him if you have an injury somewhere and you don't have a transfer, or if you want to rotate your team a little bit and go for a 3-5-2 instead of a 3-4-3. So Rodgers is definitely a good player for that. After that, we have Anthony Robinson from Fulham. As you can see with this draft, I don't have 2 4 million defenders, and that's because I want to be able to have a little bit of rotation in my defence with players that have good fixtures, and I feel like with 2 4 million defenders, you can't really do that. So Robinson from Fulham is the player that I've gone for here. The fixtures that Fulham have are really nice, and they do have Ipswich and Leicester in the first 4 or 5 games, and I wanted to have Robinson in for that sole reason, and he rotates really nicely with the likes of Anderson and Konsa that you can see in the starting team. He's just not playing for that first week because they're against United away, which could be a difficult fixture, but really nice for rotation later on down the line. For our 4 million defender, we've gone for Barco. This can be any 4 million defender. I just feel like I've gone for Barco because with Estepinian being injured, Barco is probably going to see a little bit of game time at the start of the season in that left-back role. And because he'll be playing more of a left wing-back, I feel like he'll get forward a little bit and get those assists, which I like in a defender. You could go for any 4 million defender like Ben Johnson, who's just moved to Ipswich. You could go for Harwood Bellis from Southampton. Just anybody that you think could be a starter, but it doesn't have to be guaranteed 4 minutes, just somebody there that can potentially come off the bench if you have an injury somewhere in your team or somebody doesn't play. Moving on to the actual starting 11, starting off in net, we have Robert Sanchez. I've gone for, it can be any 4.5 million goalkeeper really, but I've gone for Sanchez because at the minute it's looking like he's going to be that starting keeper for Chelsea. If Chelsea bring in another goalkeeper and it looks like Sanchez is a doubt to be that number 1, I will be replacing him with somebody like a Flecken or a Dean Henderson. But for now, Sanchez is that starting keeper that I think, you know what, Chelsea have some really nice fixtures, and if he is guaranteed starts, I really want to have him in. So that's the only reason that I've gone for Sanchez there. Coming into the defence, starting off with Anderson from Palace. Palace's fixtures are really nice, but again, he rotates nicely with Robinson as well when they have tougher fixtures. So Anderson is nice as a starter. I feel like for corners, he'll get forward a lot. And last season, he got a couple of goals from set pieces when he was getting into the box for a corner or a free kick. So that's the only reason that I've gone for Anderson from Palace. Moving on to Konsa. Aston Villa's fixtures are really nice, and I feel like Konsa will be a frequent starter in that team. If it's looking like Konsa's not going to be a starter, you could replace him with the likes of Dan Burn from Newcastle or somebody like that. Any other 4.5 defender really. You could even go for Mikalenko from Everton, but I feel like Konsa, if he's going to be a frequent starter, he'll play more. He'll either be a centre back or a right back, and I feel like if he can get forward for set pieces or anything like that, he's definitely one to keep an eye on, as he could get you a couple of goals or assists in that Villa team. With the run of fixtures that they have, I don't think you can go wrong. But again, he rotates nicely with Anderson and Robinson. When he has a bad fixture, the other two have really nice fixtures. So definitely worth keeping an eye on them fixtures there. And then for our expensive defender, we've gone for Gvardiol from Man City. This was a toss-up between Gvardiol and Saliba, but I feel like Gvardiol's fixtures are a lot nicer than Saliba's. Arsenal's fixtures at the start of the season aren't looking pretty at all, and I can't see them keeping many clean sheets there. And with them now signing Calafiori from Bologna, I feel like you don't really know in that Arsenal team who's going to be the starting defenders. So with Gvardiol, I think he's the only one in that City team that is guaranteed starts. The rest of them might be mixed, but with Gavalio, at least you know he's guaranteed starts. If he's playing like he did last season in more of that left wing back role, I think he'll be a really good asset as well for getting assists and a couple of goals. And with the fixtures that City have, I can see quite a few clean sheets in there, so definitely one to be keeping an eye on. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about that defence and the bench? Is there anybody that you think I've missed out or you would rather replace with somebody else? And let's move on to the midfield. So moving on to the midfielders, we've gone for 4 really strong midfielders here, meaning that the team is lining up as a 3-4-3, and we'll see a little bit why later on when we get to the attackers. But if we start off with Mo Salah, it is a Salah and Haaland draft, so Salah has to be there, but there's good reasons for it. The fixtures that Liverpool have are really nice, with Ipswich away for that first game, Brentford at home for the second game. Yes, they have Man United away for that third game, but Salah tends to return quite a lot against Man United. Even if it's with an assist, it's still a return. So Salah is definitely one to be looking at there. I think for that premium asset at 12.5, it's not too expensive. And yes, he's more expensive than Palmer, Foden, the likes of that. But if you're wanting a Salah and Haaland draft, the rest of the draft is how this would line up. So Salah is there for that sole purpose, but his fixtures are really nice. Moving on to Eze for 7 million. This doesn't have to be Eze. You could even go for a 6.5 like Morgan Gibbs-White or Garnacho, maybe even Leon Bailey. But Eze is there because with Elise leaving Crystal Palace this season, Eze will be stepping into it a lot more. He'll get a lot more starts. He's going to be on near enough every set piece. And for the start of the season, he could even be on penalties, with Mateta probably not being ready for the start of the season, as he's playing in that France Olympics squad. So Eze got a lot of assists last season, and that was in 26 starts. This season, he'll start near enough every game, get a lot more assists, play the majority of minutes on every set piece. I don't think you can go wrong with having Eze. You have 2 Palace assets there in Anderson and Eze. Eze on the corners, Anderson in the box for the corner. What could go wrong? But again, if you're not liking the look of Eze, you could go for a cheaper asset there, and then in your defence, upgrade a player to a 5 million defender instead of a 4.5, or another 4.5 instead of Barco. But it's entirely up to you in that sense. But I've gone for Eze mainly for the set pieces and for the game time. Moving on to Nkunku then. With Chelsea's fixtures, I feel like you're going to want a Chelsea asset in there somewhere. I know we have Sanchez in net, but you're going to want a forward asset. And with Nkunku being 6.5, I do think he's an absolute steal. Last season, he was 7.5 and down as a forward, but he got that really bad injury and hardly played any of the season. He started 2 games in the entire season, but in them 2 games, he got 3 goals, which was really nice to see. And with him coming down to 6.5 this season and being moved to a midfielder, I think because you can't really afford Palmer for this draft, Nkunku is that Chelsea asset to go for. They have, like as I said, they've got a really nice run of fixtures, and I think Nkunku, yes, he won't be on penalties or anything, but he'll be playing as a forward role, and he'll still get quite a lot of goals, and he'll create a lot of play and get a lot of assists. And I think he's really nice to look at in that sense, if you're looking away from penalties and Palmer being that expensive asset from Chelsea. And then the final player is Gordon, coming in at 7.5 this season. That is more expensive than last season, but it's deserved. They've got Southampton at home for that first game, and last season at home, Gordon scored in near enough every game. And I think this season, if he doesn't leave Newcastle, it'll be similar, if not the exact same, and he might even score more. And for 7.5, I think for a little bit more of a, not too expensive, like a mid-range asset, he's definitely that one to look at because of the fixtures that Newcastle have. Again, he can rotate out if you want him to play Rodgers. If Rodgers looks like he's starting a lot of games and has a nicer fixture than Gordon does, by all means, you can start Rodgers instead of Gordon. But I think Gordon, with the fixtures that they have, he's a frequent starter for Newcastle, and he's going to get on the score sheet quite a lot. So that's why I've gone for him. But again, I want your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of that midfield 4? Is there anybody that you think I've missed out? Or is there anybody cheaper that you think you could get in there to save funds there and go for somebody more expensive elsewhere in the team? So moving on to the final section, which is going to be the forwards. We've gone for 3 really strong forwards here. So we start off with Haaland. Because it is a Haaland and Salah draft, Haaland needs to be there. But again, this season, Haaland may be essential. And from building drafts, it is looking a lot more likely that Haaland is going to be essential, especially with Ipswich as that second game. Ipswich at home as well. he could even get a hat-trick, if not 4, 5, even 6 goals. I don't think Ipswich are going to do well in that game at all, and Haaland might be essential for it. After that game, you could look to move away from him, but for that start, I think you might need to have him. I know it doesn't have the best fixture for that first game in Chelsea, and they do have, I think they've got Arsenal in there somewhere as well. But just for that second game against Ipswich, I feel like he might be essential. But for 15 million, I can understand a lot of people not going for him. He's just there because it is a Salah and a Haaland draft. But again, could end up being essential depending on how he plays in pre-season. Moving on to Alexander Isak, the same reason as Gordon, the fixtures are really nice. And with Isak being on penalties and looking like he's going to be that number one striker for Newcastle, it's looking essential that you need to have Isak in as well. I know a lot of people are going for Isak and Watkins, but having Isak and Haaland is actually really nice. You've got two penalty takers there, both with favourable fixtures that are looking really nice. Isak last season, at the start of the season, he wasn't starting every game, but towards the end, he became that number one striker and moved on to penalties. And I think every penalty he took, he scored. Now, yes, I can't see Newcastle getting too many penalties this season, but with Gordon there, Gordon was the one that was winning them a lot of penalties. And if he can win a penalty, he gets an assist. So you've got an assist for Gordon and then a goal for Isak, which is 2 returns in your team already. So I think having Isak there just because he's that penalty taker and that number one striker, definitely worth looking at. And then the last forward that we've gone for is Manice from Fulham. Yes, he's coming in at 6 million, which is a little bit more of the mid-range, and you could look to go for somebody cheaper and upgrade elsewhere, but I feel like with Manice, he's going to be on penalties for Fulham, and the fixtures aren't the worst. They do have Ipswich and Leicester as the third and the fourth game, and both of them are really nice fixtures where Manice could get 1, 2, maybe even 3 goals in each game, which is going to be multiple returns for you. And I feel like if you're going for any 6 million forward, it's either Manice or Wood. And Manice, for me, has that better fixture run because of Ipswich and Leicester in there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments on that. Would you rather go for a cheaper forward than Manice and upgrade elsewhere? Or are you happy with having Manice or Wood for that 6 million and losing out elsewhere in the team? So there we have it, guys. That was just a brief look at a Salah and a Haaland draft that looks fairly balanced in the majority of the pitch. But I want your thoughts in the comments. First of all, what would you rate that team? If you were to rate that team out of 10, what would it be? For me, I'd probably give it around an 8.5. I do think there are areas that it could improve in, or you could go for a cheaper asset and more expensive somewhere else. But I think overall it looks okay. I also want your thoughts on what players you think I missed out. Are the players in there that you would go for, but also players that you wouldn't go for, and who would you replace them with? As always, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And until next time, thank you for watching.